Barry Jones and Bill O'Brien. On the fourth row, Steve Masterton and Brian Callahan. Masterton the second fastest of the 2 to 3 litre class cars, Barry Jones being the fastest. On the sixth row, Peter Williamson heading the up to 2 litre class cars in the Celica, number 71, and Alan Grice with his pit crew having to be shooed away from the grid. Bruce Stewart there driving instead of Colin Bond in the V6 Capri. Further back, 16th grid position sees Alexandra Surplus in a Toyota Corolla, ex-Peter Williamson and Mark Quinn, the fastest of the 1.6 litre class. Dick Johnson, though, can he repeat his race-leading performance from the CRC 300 at Amaroo? And what's the drag race going to be resolved? Well, there you see it. The big 9 Camaro with just a few hundred cc's advantage over Bartlett, blasting through to the lead, being followed by Murray Carter, slotting into 4th place. Alan Grice slotting into 3rd. A mercurial start for him. And Bob Newell 5th. No, in fact, Alan Grice is back there in 5th. It is, in fact, Peter Jansen in 3rd place, yes. So Bartlett leads Johnson, Jansen, Carter, Muir, then Grice, and then Callahan. Johnson already wanting the lead. Gets it all wrong. See the pressure that puts on him from Jansen behind, and lets Bartlett make just a little bit of a break. 96 laps is 250.5 kilometres, that being the minimum distance for the races counting for the Endurance Championships, of which there are 4. Sandown is the 3rd, Surfers Paradise the 1st of November is the 4th and final. Clive Benson Brown's car being driven by Peter Jansen. Commodore, the only Commodore up towards the front running.
I'd say, Will, that at this early stage, Dick Johnson is a little bit concerned about his tyres. I'd say they would still be cold. He's running quite a hard compound to make sure that he can get through this race without a repetition of his problems at Amaroo. And it's probably going to take it about 4 laps before they really start to effectively operate. And also that car would be very tail heavy with a full load of fuel.
Kevin Bartlett also doesn't expect to go through tyres at the rate at which he did at Amaroo, this circuit being much easier on them.
Well, of course, they got a little bit of a chance to cool down, and there isn't the number of corners all going one way, such as we have at Amaroo.
Jansen keeping the leading pair of Chevrolet and Falcon well in sight, with the Holden Commodore in 3rd place. BP corner for the 2nd time. Enormous amount of power in that Camaro, which Kevin must have to squeeze on nice and evenly and progressively to avoid wheel spin and knocking the tyres around.
That's right. He'd be no problem on that corner there, but the tight stuff, which he's just starting to approach now, if he was rough on the car, he would destroy a set of tyres in a very short space of time.
We also saw Dick Johnson there just applying the brakes once and then coming onto them again. At one stage, of course, touring cars suffered a lot of what the drivers called knockback in the pads, didn't they? And they had to guard against it.
Yes, in the earlier types of brakes, what happened is after you went over a couple of bumps, the pads would shake away from the discs themselves. Then to your horror, when you put your foot on the brake, nothing was there. And of course, this led to the practice called left footing, which meant that as you go down the straight, approaching a corner, you just move the left foot across onto the brake pedal to make sure that it's pumped up. But a little bit like playing the organ.
The brakes they've got now, though, that's not necessary, really, is it? Although a lot of drivers find it hard to get out of the habit.
Well, it's a confidence booster. The type of brakes that are being used these days are very, very sophisticated. Multiple piston brakes, very, very effective.
Leo, an unusual move being made there by Jansen in 3rd place?
Yes, I think he's enjoying this because Dick and Kevin are annoying one another, and that's making life fairly easy for Peter Jansen, because whilst they're doing that, it's very entertaining racing, but I would think that they're probably something like a second off their practice times. whilst they're manoeuvring for positions. And the third car in a situation such as that is really getting an armchair ride.
And we can see back in fourth place Murray Carter being pressured hard by Bob Muir, Alan Grice in with him. And again, three cars are really honing themselves for the races still to come, the long-distance races, particularly the James Hardy at Bathurst. Carter going well, Leo, in practices. A good practice time from the veteran.
Yes, and going well at this early stage in the race too. Murray obviously likes this long circuit here as to Oran Park. The problem that Alan Grice has, of course, that whilst he can lap, and yesterday did lap virtually as quick as those two Fords in front of him, where they're slow. And it's going to be very difficult problem for him to work out where to overtake them, because even if he gets a little bit away down the back, they'll probably blow him off again down the straight. So yes, he's going to have a bit of a think about where to make his move, and I'm sure that's going through his mind right now. I'd suggest probably when they start to lap people, it would be a good time to think about it. You can see there that the distance of the clock is going down the straight.
Will Johnson looking as though he wants to get around Kevin Bartlett. Leo, what would be his best tactic if he were able to get in front of the Camaro? Should he try and make a break?
Yes, I think he needs to put a little bit of distance away from Kevin if he can, because that saves the problem of panel beating. And also, again, when they start to lap people, it's always nice to have a few car lengths up your sleeve so that you don't have to take a chance when lapping a slower car and risk the chance of a collision or possibly being forced off the road. But it's early days yet, so they don't have to get too worked up about that situation.
So the leading sixth position still unchanged, with Murray Carter just tending to distance himself a little bit from Bob Muir and Alan Grice back in that second trio. Further back, seventh place is Brian Callahan still, and this, of course, is the leading trio. 92 laps to go. All completed.
Well, Kevin certainly is keen on staying in front, because even with the power advantage that he enjoys, slight power advantage that he enjoys, he's really weaving about the place and making life very difficult.
Well, Dick Johnson was trying to make things difficult there, and in fact committed himself very heavily, didn't he? Because a lesser driver than Bartlett could have seen them come unstuck, couldn't it?
That's right, and it's also exactly the sort of thing that he doesn't want to do, that is lock up brakes and get his tyres overheated, or worse still, form a flat spot on the tyres, which is very easy to do.
We don't see Peter Brock make that sort of manoeuvre. When he makes his overtaking manoeuvre, it's usually fairly definitive and he gets by. And is that one of the differences that makes Peter Brock such a great touring car driver?
I think so. I don't think I've ever seen Peter Brock lock a brake at the start. He is excellent in his tactical driving. I think really that's really where he excels. There are some people around, a number of people, that can go as fast as Peter Brock, but they can't do it for as long, and that is the difference.
Here's Johnson coming out quickly. He really wants to go for a run down the straight, trying to slot in behind the Camaro, and then he loses the slipstream and in fact doesn't capitalise on that. But he really did look there, the way he lined himself up on the exit of BP corner, as though he was going to make a serious rush down the straight. Through that very fast left-hander, leading then to Rothman's corner here. And Jansen lurking and looking after the cars so well, not having to do anything, just hold a very comfortable third place. Peter Williamson, car 77, the fastest qualifier in the 2-litre class, 11th grid position. There, car 41, Barry Jones, he was the fastest qualifier in the 2 to 3 litre class cars, the Mazda RX-7, 7th fastest qualifier and presently leading his class.
In fact, Jones is running the peripherally ported Mazda, which is allegedly the car that Alan Moffat is going to be running at Bathurst for the James Hardy 1000 this year, and is the car that is supposed to be able to challenge these big V8s. Well, it's certainly not doing so here on the short circuit this early in the event, but it's later in the event that we'll start to see the smaller cars come up.
I think it must be true, because I have an invitation from Mazda to go down to Melbourne to see the car unveiled on the 1st of September. And certainly a big effort being put in there, and fairly open secret that one of the cigarette companies is backing Alan Moffat in a big way in that onslaught on the Hang 10 400 at Sandown, September the 13th, and then the James Hardy at Bathurst. And some of the men he hopes to be able to wrestle with, and by gee, it's going to be interesting to see if he can do it. Now these two in much bigger cars, but comparing it then with that slippery little Mazda, which is what Alan Moffat will be in, with all the Moffat panache, and this could be Johnson's go. By gee, everything but a slip through to the lead. One fraction more and Dick Johnson would have been through there. Peter Williamson on the road in 77, just leading the car that he once owned and drove, the Chickadee chicken car of Graham Bailey, number 51, and that car is leading the classes. Into the pit area goes Alan Grice in the BMW 635.
So today becomes a development session again for Alan Grice rather than a race for the lead as he works up towards the important long-distance races, the more important long-distance races at the end of the year. There's Alan Grice getting a security churn of fuel as they work around the front right-hand side of the motor car. Perhaps a tie suspension problem there.
With 8 laps completed, 86 to go, so the hopes of no pit stop for the BMW now dashed.
And Bartlett with all sorts of pressure on him from Dick Johnson now as they boom down into VP corner. There goes Johnson.
And will do it this time. Yes, sir. Hits the lead, and now can he run away down the straight, or will a big, hard-striding, fast but heavy Camaro rein him in? And there's your answer. No way. Dick Johnson's made the move, now wants to make the break.
Well, there is a way. Kevin Bartlett obviously a bit faster down the chute there because he's looking for a way through on the inside. Can't do it that lap, but it'll be interesting to see just how much pressure he can keep on Dick Johnson through twisty bits now. Has Bartlett been holding Johnson up through the twisty S's on the new part of the Grand Prix circuit? And as I was saying earlier, Will, Dick Johnson carrying some unusual ballast in the back to get his 30 pounds extra weight as required by scrutineers. He's carrying the spare tyre of a Holden Commodore in the back of his Ford Falcon. Johnson in the lead, behind him Kevin Bartlett, ranging still. Well, Johnson can't afford to relax.
There's evidence of the worth of Johnson persisting with trying to find his way through. He knew that he could go more quickly, more easily, if he were free of that big car in front. And he's enjoying himself now. Off the bridge, finding his own lines, working his own way through traffic. Not worried about Jansen, still in 3rd place, nor Bartlett. And now trying to settle the tyres down, look after the car, and hopefully only to put fuel in. They've gone to 15-inch rear wheels as opposed to the 16-inch rears they ran in the CRC at Amaru Park. And he said the problem at Amaru was that we were only using 1/2 of the tyre, and that was why they went off. Still got 16-inch fronts, and they think, therefore, that they will have solved their tyre problem. Leading the 1600cc class, the car that Peter Williamson bought, the little Toyota Corolla Levin, a very quick little car, and slotted Mike Quinn in the car, in the hands now of Alexandra Surplus, who bought it just a bit over a year ago. A very potent little motor car, the lap record holder, in fact, for that class, although the time held by Mike Quinn as the record, a couple of seconds faster than Alexandra Surplus's best time yesterday. But still, she's doing a good enough job to be leading Ian Burrell's Mitsubishi Colt, Craig Bradkey, Rod Stevens in the Dandenong Mitsubishi entry of a Mitsubishi Lancer, and going very nicely, in fact, in the 1.6 litre class. Leading the 2 to 3 litre class is the team car to this particular one. That one being driven not by the name on the windscreen, Colin Bond, but by Don Smith, Bruce Stewart. Bruce Stewart you saw winning the historic car race earlier today, and that car's running 7th outright, second in the class. This is the class leader, running 5th outright, and leading the 2 to 3 litre class, being driven all the way through the race by young Steve Masterton. Going well just in front now of Tony Kavich in the Mazda RX-3, which was black flagged earlier, brought into the pits, but has been allowed out again by officials, and I don't know the reason for the black flagging. Masterton doing a good job in that car, 5th outright behind the race leader, Dick Johnson. 2nd place, Murray Carton. So Falcons 1 and 2, RX-7 Mazda 3rd, Barry Jones in 41, Bill O'Brien, another Falcon 4th, then Masterton 5th. Up to the dog leg. Just off here, Murray Carter's one of the people that's gone astray, going down the grass there on one occasion and slamming into the tyre barriers and to a stationary motor car, and did a lot of damage to a Falcon, a thing which he doesn't often do, Leo, and in fact I think it was caused by mechanical troubles on that occasion.
Yes, I can't recall Murray ever having had a prang before. He's very careful, he's very vastly experienced, of course. He's driven a lot of very rapid motor cars over the years, but he's been very much a Ford specialist in production touring racing for many years.
It's so long ago that people forget the Carter Corvette, which was a very fast car, and in sports car racing, in the early 60s?
Yes,
it was a hard car to catch.
Very rapid. It was a car that he built himself, a sports car Ford front engine, with a great big Chevrolet engine, similar to Kevin Bartlett's car, and it was capable of something like 160, 170 miles an hour.
And a very pretty looking car, too.
Yes,
made it look well.
done.
And people forget, too, that before that he raced motorbikes.
Well, I wasn't aware of that.
I didn't see him race, and I hasten to add, but he did. So there's the 2 Falcons that have been holding the flag so well here today. Running in 2nd place, Carter, the race leader, coming up behind him, and will rein him in shortly, although Johnson's not much fussed about doing that, because it's of no advantage to him at all. Johnson, in fact, at this stage is having a very easy drive, well within the pace that he wants to set. He would have dropped quite a few hundred engine revs. He'd be taking it easy on brakes, looking after tyres, and just stroking the car along to the finish with 6 laps to go. But Carter has a different incentive. He's been having a wrestle with Barry Jones, and he's had a pit stop which was considerably longer than Dick Johnson's, and so he has every incentive to keep hammering hard.
So once the 4th place car, the Ford Falcon, now being driven by Gary Cook, originally by Bill O'Brien, that car stopped and they removed a couple of tyres, caution. John French, the pit manager for Dick Johnson, went along and had a look at them, and it was very obvious that they would have lasted a distance. And from that time on, they were quite confident that all they had to do was put in gas.
Barry Jones here in the car number 41, which at one stage was lying in 2nd position. What a remarkable turn-up for the books it had been. If an Australian Endurance Championship race, a series previously known as the Championship of Makes, or Manufacturers Championship, it's gone through a few titles. If it had been won by one of the lower class cars, an RX-7 Mazda, that admittedly with the peripheral porting is running in the outright class, but the actual swept volume of the engine is only 1100 cc's. It's rated because of the firing impulses by international agreement at 2.2 litres, so for it to be running in the outright class is quite remarkable, using the Wankel engine, which of course was taken on very enthusiastically under license by a number of manufacturers, some big ones, Citroën and General Motors among others, and given away by NSU. It contributed to NSU very much sitting down on their tail, very nearly going bust, but Mazda persisted with the car and the engine type and design and made it work. It was a hard row for them to hoe, Leo, wasn't it?
Yes, I think technology has caught up, and they're obviously now very reliable. They don't get all smoky the way they used to, and I think I think their sales prove that they're now accepted by the public.
It's an ideally suited engine too to the car because it's quite compact, so it slots beautifully into a sports car. People don't worry so much about performance as the race leader goes through on Carter. They don't worry so much about the slightly heavier fuel consumption, although it's not, again, vastly improved over what it used to be. But they love the performance of it, and the lighter weight and the smaller dimensions of it suited very well to a small car. But here, Johnson, really setting his own pace, 3.5 laps to victory, and a margin of 2 laps now on the second place car. Second place, Carter, in fact, completing 89 laps, so Johnson is 3 up now. That's taken him to 3 in front. Johnson, 92 laps completed on his 93rd, with Carter on his 90th, 89 completed. Then in third place is car number 30, Bill O'Brien. He's come up in front of Barry Jones. That problem with the gears slipping out on the RX-7, dropping it back from a high once of second outright. Steve Masterton is 4th in 32. 5th, and these are all on the same number of laps, is Peter McLeod, and into the pits goes Johnson. He's got 3 laps to play with, but let's see what his problem is. It's probably tyres. Then we have Jones next, so Carter down to Jones, 2nd, down to 7th, are all on the same number of laps. Fuel, check tyres, no problem, out. And all it's done is to bring it back from just over 3 laps to just under. The margin between the race leader, Dick Johnson, in 17, second placed Murray Carter in 18. Both of them in Falcons. Falcons, in fact, running 1, 2, 3 at the moment. Ford Capri's running, or Ford Capri running 4th. Mazda RX-7 then running 5th and 6th. So for once, most unusually, Holden Commodore not represented anywhere in the major placings.
Steve, of course, is in radio communication with his pits, and I'd say he's either made the suggestion that it might be wise to take the precaution of putting on some extra fuel, or perhaps he's felt the car start to surge. Most people manage to get their petrol pickup organised so that it's almost impossible to totally run out of fuel, because the car will get surge, say through either a right or a left-hand corner. There'll be enough petrol there to get the driver back to the pits. Doesn't always work, but that's the theory.
Johnson, 2.5 laps to go, very nearly 2, and the remainder of the field 5, if of course they were to run through and to complete the race distance, which they won't. But the lead, very nearly 3 laps. And this is a fine morale-boosting victory that it's going to be for Ford Falcon. Dick Johnson, after that early argument with Kevin Bartlett, resolved that with great determination as he finally found a way around. Peter Williamson there showing a rotary engine tray of flame coming out the exhaust pipe as he backs off to the corner. He's now got fuel injection, Peter Williamson, on the Celica.
And that was the cause of his stop. He has been having some trouble with the fuel injection. Had trouble at Adelaide, and more trouble today, but it's been rectified. But obviously there's a vibration problem in the engine, and the inlet injections are actually breaking off from the manifold.
Johnson getting the car a bit unsettled, and now starting to have a little bit of a sprint. He wants to enjoy himself over the last few laps, and he knows it can't do the tyres any damage that's going to worry him between now and the checkered flag, with 1 lap and 1 corner to go. Johnson really did show in the early laps of this race, as he now has completed 95 and has 1 only to go. And we then look at Sixth place, Barry Jones. In front of him, fifth place, is car 33, a similar RX-7 of Peter McLeod. Then the Ford Capri of Steve Masterton. As we look again at the race leader, Bill O'Brien, Falcon, third in car 30. Murray Carter, Falcon, number 18, second. And this one, the race leader, over the Bridgestone Bridge for the final time. That looping right-hander off the bridge that, Leo, is a very big commitment because you have to turn in towards the apex without being able to see the corner at all.
Yes, and at that part of the circuit, the cars would be doing 100 miles an hour in third gear, and really just about ready to put it into fourth gear. So it's a very busy piece of road. One of the more favourite corners, actually, of the competitors.
And now for the final time, out of the final corner, Dick Johnson, the plaudits of the crowd, the hand wave, and the checkered flag for Dick Johnson, the True Blue Falcon, number 17, victory in the second round of the Australian Endurance Championship, 1981.